you reach a point, often quietly, without ceremony, when life stops responding to the levers you've been pulling. You know this moment. Everyone does, few admit it out loud. It comes in a kind of hush, like the stillness after a long storm, when you suddenly realize the world isn't bending to your will anymore. The plans you arranged with such care begin to slip. The outcomes you rehearsed refuse to appear, and you find yourself standing there, hands outstretched, holding nothing at all. You try to grasp at what's leaving, the way you once cupped water from a creek as a child, believing you could carry it home. Life moves the same way water does, through the fingers, not into the fist. You tighten your grip, thinking maybe effort will make the difference, maybe focus or discipline or worry will keep everything in place. Yet the more you try, the faster it seems to drain. It's bewildering at first. A soft kind of panic, a sense that the script has gone missing and you're the only one who didn't get the rewrite. You look at the days that once obeyed your scheduling, your striving, your constant vigilance. You see how they no longer line up like obedient soldiers. They wander, they arrive late, they dissolve without explanation. And there you are, standing on a beach you thought you understood, watching a wave erase the footprints you made just a moment ago. It feels personal, though some part of you knows it isn't. Waves don't apologize for returning to themselves. There is a strange tenderness in this powerlessness, a fragility you didn't ask for. You feel it in your chest when you inhale and notice the breath doesn't answer to you either. It comes on its own. It leaves on its own. Even your lungs understand something you have spent a lifetime denying the world is moving, with or without your direction. You keep trying to gather the pieces, but the pieces scatter. You keep trying to hold the line, but the line bends. And beneath all of it, a small voice, quiet, nearly drowned by habit, whispers that maybe this slipping is not failure at all, but truth revealing itself. For a moment, you just stand there, not fighting the tide. You start to notice something subtle, almost embarrassing in its simplicity. Pain didn't come from what happened. The pain came from the part of you that insisted it shouldn't have happened. That quiet rebellion inside you, the refusal to allow life to be what it already is. That's where the suffering began. You replay the broken plans in your mind, the ones you arranged with such care, the trip that fell apart, the relationship that didn't survive, the future you sketched so confidently on a calendar that has since yellowed at the edges. You keep picking up those plans like shattered pieces of glass, hoping you can press them back into shape. Every edge cuts you a little more, not because the pieces are dangerous, but because you won't set them down. You walk past closed doors and still reach for the handle. You tell yourself maybe the hinges will soften this time, maybe the lock was only stuck before. Deep down, you know the door has been closed for a long while, quietly, firmly, without anger. And still you knock. Still you wait. Still you ache for an opening that isn't meant to be. It's not the door that hurts you. It's the refusal to turn away. Life changes seasons without asking. Trees shed what no longer grows. The wind shifts direction in the middle of an afternoon. But you, being human, demand consistency from a world built on movement. You ask winter to behave like spring, as if the weather were governed by your longing. And when it doesn't comply, you call it unfair, when all it ever did was what nature required. You suffer because you wished it would be different. Some nights, you sit with the letters you never sent, the apologies, the confessions, the explanations. Words that might have changed something once are now just ink on a page. You hold them like talismans from a life that might have been. Yet the ache is not in the silence of those unsent words. The ache is in the way you cling to their imagined outcomes, as if the past could still be persuaded. Slowly, you begin to see the pattern. It isn't the brokenness of events that wounds you. It's the tightening. The mental fists closing around what is already gone, already changed, already true. Reality itself never hurts. Only the argument with it does. And the moment the argument ends, the pain begins to loosen. like a knot remembering how to untangle. There comes a moment, usually after exhaustion, after the mind has argued itself into a corner, when you begin to sense a strange, quiet truth rising beneath all your effort. It doesn't arrive with fanfare. It doesn't demand belief. It simply stands there, patient as a river waiting for you to stop thrashing in its current. And when you finally pause long enough to feel it, you realize something startling. Peace you've been chasing doesn't come from getting life to obey you. It comes from no longer needing it to. You sit with this for a while, unsure if it's wisdom or surrender or something in between. For years, you believed that control kept you safe. You shaped your days, tightened your routines, managed outcomes as if they were fragile objects that might shatter without your constant supervision. But life, in its broader rhythm, never followed those instructions. It kept shifting, it kept moving. And now, as you stand by the water of your own days, you begin to notice that the current flows more steadily when you stop trying to redirect it. You watch a river and see how it turns only where the land allows. It doesn't fight the bend. It doesn't argue with the rocks. It simply meets what's there and moves on. And something in you softens at this. You wonder what your life might feel like if you allowed yourself to bend instead of brace, to follow the shape of things instead of forcing your own. Even the wind through tall grass carries the lesson. It doesn't push every blade into alignment. It doesn't demand straight lines or certainty. It moves gently, then disappears, leaving the field exactly as it is, changed and unchanged at once. You imagine your own heart responding that way, but not controlled, open but not overwhelmed. The sky, too, teaches you. Clouds drift without effort, reshaping themselves in quiet agreement with whatever the day becomes. No resistance, no urgency, a kind of natural trust. And slowly, almost reluctantly, you begin to consider the possibility that letting go isn't losing. It's allowing life to reveal what it has been trying to offer all along. Peace is not seized by force. Peace arrives when you stop holding. There is a day, you may not notice it at first, when the world feels a little less sharp than it did before. The edges soften, the noise quiets, and for the first time in a long time, you feel something like warmth returning to the place inside you that once clenched at every change. It isn't triumph, it isn't even relief. It's more like sunlight after a long rain, gentle, unsure, but undeniably there. You begin to sense that life has not been punishing you. It has simply been teaching you how to stop fighting its rhythm. You see this in small ways. A conversation that once filled you with dread now passes through you without resistance. A plan that shifts at the last minute no longer sends you spiraling. Even the uncertainties, the ones you used to brace against, feel less like threats and more like waves brushing at your ankles. You're still cautious, still tender from all the holding on, but something in you has begun to loosen. You feel it most in your body. The shoulders that lived near your ears find their way down. The breath that once caught in your throat moves a little easier. And your heart, that loyal, worked companion, softens in your chest, as if it finally believes it doesn't have to guard every doorway anymore. You realize that trust isn't a choice you force. It's something that grows in the clearing left behind when fear steps aside. Look around and you'll see the world reflecting this back to you. A tree stands steady after the wind, not because it resisted the storm, because it yielded to it. The branches that bent are the ones that survived. The ground beneath you feels more stable, not because it has changed, but because you're no longer gripping it in desperation. Even the light seems different, warmer somehow, as if it knew you were finally ready to receive it. And here, in this new quiet, you understand something with a clarity that doesn't need words. Life was never against you. It was guiding you, patiently, toward the moment you could unclench your hands and let it carry you. You breathe, and the air feels kind. There comes a moment when the whole journey settles, not with fireworks, not with revelation, with a softness so complete it feels almost like disappearing. Not the frightening kind of disappearance, The kind that happens when you finally stop running from your own life. You sit there, in the quiet of an ordinary day, and notice that you are no longer reaching for the next moment. You're simply here, breathing, present, unburdened by the need to shape anything. The ocean teaches this without a single word. Watch long enough, and you'll see that the waves don't negotiate. They rise, they fall, they return to themselves. No striving, no agenda, just the endless rhythm of being. And something inside you recognizes this as the rhythm you've been missing. The one that was drowned out by all the effort, all the tightening, all the fear that life wouldn't hold you unless you held it first. You feel the horizon in you now, not as a destination, but as a presence, a quiet widening, a sense that nothing needs to be solved in this moment. You're not waiting for a sign or an answer. You're not bracing for change. You're simply allowing the sky to be sky, the breath to be breath, the day to be the day. And in that allowing, you discover a form of peace that doesn't rise or fall with circumstance. It just is. Still air becomes its own kind of teacher. It sits beside you without demanding anything. You meet its stillness with your own. Your hands, once curled in an old habit of holding on, rest open in your lap, as if they've finally remembered that openness was their natural state all along. You realize you don't need to claim anything. Not control, not certainty, not even understanding. You only need to remain available to the moment as it is. In this presence, even your name feels like a temporary costume. You sense the part of you that watches your life unfold, unhurried and untouched, like deep water beneath a moving tide. This is the self that exists before effort, before fear, before the story. The self that doesn't need to become anything to be whole. You sit with it. You breathe with it. You let yourself be carried by the same current you once tried so hard to command. And in the gentlest way imaginable, you understand nothing is missing when you stop reaching.